Welcome to the next episode of Expert Showcase. Today on the show we have Rob Kosberg, and he's going to tell you and show you how to publish, promote, and profit from your very own best-selling book. Hey Rob, how you doing today?
Awesome, Chris. Love that intro, man. Powerful.
Epic. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today, folks. I've been trying to get Rob on this show for a long time. This has been, a labor of love, a desire to get him on this show, and we finally were able to make it happen.
Finally.
Yeah. So, and Rob is coming to us, and I keep forgetting this with other guests, so I'm going to start officially with Rob. Rob is coming to us live from sunny Pasadena, California, which is epic. I hear they have a lot of roses out there, as we were saying before.
They do. They do. It's a beautiful place.
Epic, epic. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. We always start our shows off with the hero's journey, and our audience has gotten used to this. We talk about the beginning, the turning point, and the aftermath of all of our experts. It gives our audience a chance to get to know them better, and gives us a chance to really dig deep into their backstory and understand why they are our guest expert is somebody our audience should look to for help. So Rob, give us a quick summary. I don't know, maybe 60 to 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, a quick summary of your hero's journey. Where you've been, what the turning point was, and then where you're at now.
Success, massive failure, book, success. You didn't say 6 seconds. You said 60 to 90 seconds.
And that was the true hero's journey.
Yeah, I got started in real estate when I was 18 years old. My dad owned a real estate company, and I'm 50 now, to give you an idea of how long I was in real estate. And short version, in the early 2000s, I had 3 companies all centered in the real estate industry. And they were doing great. We were doing $100 million a year in closings, several $1 million a year in personal income. I owned millions of dollars in real estate. And everyone knows what was coming, right? We had that massive, massive crash, and closed my company down, laid off dozens of employees. I mean, it was painful. Happy to share more of my pain if you like. My whole turnaround was I wrote a book. And in a whole new industry, became successful, very successful, and kind of positioned me as a thought leader in that industry at the time, and kind of became what I have now, which, man, no one wants to go through hard times, right, Chris? But it was a blessing. Looking back, it was a real blessing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so great you take that attitude. A lot of people go through hard times. We've had a lot of guests on the show who've gone through some major tragedies and some major low points. And the common theme that runs through successful people is, even if you get into it for the moment, even if you do let it get you down, even if your only joy during a day is taking 1 foot off the bed, putting it on the floor, and then crawling back under the covers, even if you get that low, the hallmark of a successful person is eventually you get through it. You find a way to get through. You may get some help, what have you, but you find a way to get through it. Right, Rob?
Well, I think that's true. I mean, at the time, it was incredibly painful. I mean, I've been married 26 years. At that time, I am in my mid-40s, right, and married for 20 plus years. I got 3 kids in private school. I got an 8,000 square foot house I live in. It was a complete disaster. And so what am I going to do now with the rest of my life, kind of thing? Because, when you've been in something for that long, real estate for me, and it collapses like that, it's, you just don't have the heart to do it over again. I did not, anyway. Probably the most coarse, terrible example I can give you is, if when you were younger, hopefully not anytime recent, you go on a drinking binge in college, and you get really wasted, and you're throwing up, and you don't want to have anything to do with alcohol. You don't want to have anything to do with Jack Daniels, as an example, in my own personal life ever again. And that's how I felt about real estate. I was like, oh my gosh, I just never I just, it was painful, really painful.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's talk more about the beginning. Since you were ultra successful, it really sounds like you were ultra successful. Tell us a smidge about how you built that success the first time around.
Yeah, yeah, I guess good question. Thanks for, I guess everybody measures success in different ways. So, ultra successful, I'd say probably means I would have been able to continue it, but it, it was the worst economy in my lifetime, and what happened hopefully will never be repeated. But um, first and foremost, I think it was hard work. I mean, I did get started early in it, and I got a good background, my dad having been in real estate. But I think some of the gifts that I personally have, and just the desire and willingness to work really, really hard, just elbow grease, was a lot of it. And that also was a bit of the handcuff, too, because I wasn't near as savvy a marketer then as I am now. I built it kind of with telephone and just grit. And when you get a little bit older, you want to change the positioning from me chasing people on the phone to, if I could reposition it to having people chase me, which was what I was able to do. That really. So I worked hard chasing people, but in reality, I think what I'm doing now is so much greater, so much more fun.
Yeah, definitely. And the interesting part, and we'll talk about it in the aftermath a little bit, was how you had a successful formula, but realized it wasn't. You could be even more successful than but by doing it a different way.
Yeah.
So you came from the school of hard knocks, the school of grit, the school of just going out and working really hard to make it happen. Do you think that in your first success, the beginning? Um, do you think that's a key success, a key trait for anybody to be successful?
Oh yeah, totally it is. Because you don't know what you don't know in the beginning, right? And so certainly education plays a big role in it. I don't mean a college education, though I have one. The best thing about my college education is that I completed it and I paid for it myself while I worked selling real estate. So that was a source of success and pride. But the real education came, investing in myself later. But yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it's energy. It's when you're young, it's energy and grit and determination and figuring it out that I think lays the groundwork for hopefully being able to turn it all around so that you can figure out how to attract people to you rather than continuing to chase them down. But chasing them down works too. It's just harder.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot harder to be. It's a whole lot. It's kind of funny. It's like in the animal kingdom. It's a whole. How can I put this succinctly? It's a whole lot harder to go out hunting than it is to be the hunted. The nice part in our world, when we're hunted by people, we're not about to get killed like they
Yeah.
like they do out in the
It's a
animal
good
kingdom.
thing.
It's a
It's
good
not a
thing.
bad thing. It's a good thing, right?
So it sounds like during that beginning phase, one of the things you did very successfully was complete a college education and do it and pay for it on your own, and you built, a successful real estate. Should we call it an empire? I think even if it wasn't, I think we can call it an empire. See, folks, we have
Little empire.
now. I was just about to make the joke that's and liken you to the guys like Armando Montalongo and the house flipping guys. When you did the real estate, was it buying and selling? Was it renovating? How did what type of real estate, and how did you build? What type of real estate was it, and what did you do with it?
Yeah, good question. I guess there are a lot of different. When I think real estate, I think kind of traditional. I owned a real estate brokerage,
Okay.
so I owned a mortgage company as well, and I was also a title insurance agent. So in Florida, it's different in every state, but in Florida, um, I mean, we had three companies that did all of those things. So we sold the house, we financed it, and then we did the actual closing on it. And like I said, we did $100 million a year in closings. We did a lot of closings, and but the market totally evaporated at one point. I know we'll get into that, but it was certainly very, very successful from the standpoint that we were serving a really fun market, kind of second time, third time buyers, luxury type buyers, and people that generally had money and were looking to upgrade their circumstances and their homes. And so it was fun to do. It was also a little like handcuffs, which I'm happy to explain to you as well. But it was fun.
Sure. When you, yeah, and I think it's great when I think it's great to talk about, how success, how hard work, desire, and also how a high-end market can be a blessing. But it sounds like what you were alluding to is that all of those things can be a blessing, but they can also handcuff you. And a lot of times people think, let's face it, we've got, people like Dan Kennedy and GKIC and those guys saying always go high dollar and saying you can always sell high dollar to anybody, and people take it as a panacea to fix everything. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about, why don't you go into the handcuffs a little bit? I think that'd be great.
Yeah. And I'd say, the market froze in 2007, 2008 as far as lending to anybody but your FHA, kind of your first-time home buyers, that kind of thing, which is not what we worked in. I didn't necessarily mean that's where the handcuffs were for me.
Okay.
I guess what I meant was I was making a lot of money, and yet I wasn't really fulfilled in what I was doing. You know how when you're younger, you get on a track, and you kind of you go down the track, sometimes that's been laid out in front of you, and you start making money and getting successful, and one thing builds upon another. And so for me, here I was, and this is almost embarrassing, because some people will be like, yeah, you're so, what a jerk. You made millions of dollars and you felt handcuffed. Right, I'd like to try that. But, I was in a business that, while I enjoyed some parts of it, I really didn't enjoy the real estate end of it anymore. It was like, it wasn't that fulfilling. It was just like I was making widgets, which had no, deeper meaning for me, like it was working on some core within me. And yet the handcuffs were, how do you stop doing it? Because you're making so much money doing it. It's what you've always done. God had to come along and go, you're going to stop doing it. Like crushing. Yeah. So that's the only way I would have stopped, is it all, the music stopped and I didn't have a seat left, so I had to go do something else.
Been there, yeah, and that's a great segue into the turning point, because really, whether it was the market crash, whether it was the real estate crash, whether it was 2008, how many more bad memories can I bring up for folks watching this? Everybody, we don't, I'm not a prude, I just don't really drink. I mean, it's just kind of personal choice, but I'm telling you, everybody on the show right now is going to grab a fifth of Jack because they're remembering 2008, or they're twitching. But so the interesting part is bring up the fact that God kind of smacked you over the head, and it goes back to, before we get into your turning point, it goes back to a story I tell, a very quick one, about the feather and the 2x4. God will tickle you with a feather, or the universe, or whatever higher power you believe in will tickle you with a feather if they don't think you're moving in the right direction. If you don't laugh and change direction, eventually they're going to get tired of it, and they're going to take a big 2x4 and smack you upside the head. And they will continue to do it until you figure out that you're in the wrong direction. Now, hey, God's a loving God. The universe is great and everything. They don't really want to hurt you, but sometimes you just got to go, get with the program. So you're kind of smacking the head. Was it completely the real estate crash, or were there other things going on? I mean, you said it almost like there was cracks forming because you had realized you weren't fulfilled and everything. Did that realization come before or after the crash?
Well, it came before, but I didn't have a plan or know what to do about it. So I knew it, while I was successful and making a lot of money. I was a little like, but when you're successful and you're making a lot of money, you figure, well, it's that's cool. I can sell this business, or I can you figure that there's another way out of it. At the moment, I wasn't taking any steps in that direction, but you figure, well, you make enough money, you can invest in another business and try something new, right? Having money gives you options. But it just didn't happen that way for me. It happened in a very different way for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up money gives you options, and I think that it sounds like one of the things our viewers can take away from that is the fact that even if they're ultra successful right now, and even if they think money gives them options, if they have that yearning, that something else inside them, they ought to start putting a plan in place to make it happen. I mean,
Yeah.
looking back on it, do you? And I hate to say wish because wish is such a blocking thing, and it's like next time. Would you say that next time you would do it a little bit differently and listen to that voice inside of you?
Well, I did. I did, and that's part of the turnaround story. Because when things turned around, I actually, because financially, I mean, I went from making a lot of money to closing my business.
Yeah.
I had to kind of get back on track and chase the money for a while in this new field, new for me. But then I found myself very, very quickly right back to this is not fulfilling. This is just a very similar thing. And I was able to say, okay, how do we transition out of that to something that I really love? And so yeah, would I do it differently? I did. So yeah, I would if I had an opportunity. It would have been cool. Would have loved the opportunity because then maybe I would have been able to get started faster. It wouldn't have been as painful. But yeah, I would do it differently.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I watched a guy when I was working in corporate America. I watched a guy who, right before it crashed in 2008, decided to move everything out. My famous comment to him was, "Ah, don't worry, the market's going to come back." Yeah, yeah. I'm still paying for that. I'm still
I
paying for
bet.
that
I
comment.
bet.
But from your standpoint, it sounds like you went through during your turning point period. It sounds like you went through a couple of humps and almost like a little, an up and down type of time. It sounds like the market crash, you had issue, you shut the business down, you got started into something else, and then I'm not saying you came back down, but it's kind of like you got out of it very quickly. I mean, am I hearing that right?
Yeah, not very quickly. I mean, a few years,
Okay.
but because we're going all the way back to 2007, 8. So, I mean, when I think of down, I think of closing my business, and not much compares with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the turning point wasn't so much down. This was my trajectory, and then I kind of hit a plateau, and then I took it to the next kind of level in what I'm doing now. That's probably the way I would classify it, especially looking back at '07 and '08.
Yeah, nothing compares to when you have that true. It's funny because, when you have that really downtime, nothing compares. Nothing, even a slight down doesn't ever compare to it again, right?
Right. Totally. Totally.
And you were saying something before about, people joke around about, oh, geez, I'd like to have that problem about, having a lot of money and
Right.
not be satisfied. I, how can I put this? What share with our audience. I think it'd be really valuable because I think every time somebody's ultra successful and they have that really down time, share with our audience, whether it's during the turning point or before, how that really changed your perspective on success and on money and on everything else.
Yeah, how it changed my perspective. The only hesitation is I'm not sure that it changed my perspective, but certainly it did wake me up to the immediate importance of, for me as an individual, there are things that I just can't be personally satisfied with, like internally. Like internally, things have to be right, and the money doesn't fix that, and the stuff doesn't fix that. There has to be stuff internally right. I've always known that, but as you start making more and more money, the things maybe that you wake up to are, you don't want to just. I don't want to just think of my life as, well, 8 hours a day I do this. This is my job, my job, and then I can go on and really live my purpose or make the kind of impact that I want to make. I've always wanted those things to be the same, no matter how much money I made. But of course, you don't know that until you're making a lot of money. So the change in perspective for me was when I did make a lot of money, I was like, oh, wow, so I'm still not really fired up with what I'm doing.
And I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand. I remember the quick story is I remember when I first got into corporate America, my goal was to be the CEO of a company. And when I left corporate America and I formed, one of my incorporated companies, I was elected CEO, and literally I hung up the phone and I went, "This is all it is." And you have it. You have this perspective, whether it's money, whether it's power. You have this perspective of what it's going to mean and how it's going to change your life. And only after you achieve it and realize, yeah, it's not everything the world, everything the world says or everything was cracked up to be. Only then do you realize, why you need to stay true to your core. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. And that's why people should listen to people who, like you, who had money before, who lost it all, and really now, realize that they have to fill that bucket, so to speak. So
Yeah.
so you got to the turning point, and now we're gonna stretch into the aftermath. And as it turned, you went from losing it all to starting something that really wasn't, that you said didn't completely fill your bucket. And now you're on now you plateaued, and then you are now on to your ultimate success. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about that time, and maybe I'll say, let's talk about the plateau and from that point on, if we can.
Yeah. Well, there I was in 2008, and I knew I didn't have the heart to, rebuild a real estate company. Even though I knew how to do it, I probably could have transitioned to, selling what was selling, which were foreclosures, short sales, FHA, first-time home buyers. I mean, the market was still moving, but I just, how you just don't have the heart to do it. So, I decided that I needed to reposition myself in a new industry. I picked financial services because it was close, and I had some experience in that, although no one knew me in that kind of field of endeavor, even though I had some expertise there. And you mentioned GKIC. I was part of a mastermind with GKIC and some other marketers, and it was recommended that I write a book to position myself as an authority in this industry that I was unknown. And I wrote, my first book, Life After Debt, and it did well, became a bestseller, and got me positioned on radio, speaking engagements, things like that. And the radio is really where things took off. I ended up doing, initially I was like the local financial expert guy, and so I was doing like a 2-minute spot once a week, but that was successful. And within about 8 months to a year, that grew to 4 hours a week of live radio that I was doing. And that generated hundreds of leads. And so that I rebuilt this company, or started a brand new company and built it from nothing to the point of doing over $1 million in like 13 months. So there, I went from this failure to writing the book and doing $1 million and building another business. And I was like, very quickly, I was like, financial services is just like real estate. It's not what I feel like I was supposed to be doing, but I needed the money, right? I mean, I needed, I had a family to support. I needed to take care of my family and do what was necessary. But very, very quickly, the plateau hit because I was like, I'm getting handcuffed again to, I'm chasing the money, I'm making the money, and I'm thankful. Believe me, I'm thankful. But I'm like, wow, this is not really going in the direction that the inner fulfillment that I wanted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So, because a lot of our viewers might feel that way and not even know it. In other words, they might just feel something is off, but they can't put their finger on it.
Yeah.
Was it like that for you, or either the first time or the second time, or did you really know? Like, was it kind of that inner feeling where you knew that you weren't living to your purpose, and you knew you knew exactly what was off. So was it that you knew exactly what was off, or that you just had this weird feeling and you started searching for it?
Um, I'd say I knew, but it's a little like, the hierarchy of needs type deal, right? So, initially my needs were, it took me some time to go from the closing of my business to the success of the next one, because I made all these mistakes in writing my book and launching it, and it took me 18 months to write a book that's less than 100 pages. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, wasted money and all kinds of things. And so, my hierarchy of needs, if you will, was I needed to kind of lick my wounds and get successful again. But when that happened, very quickly, I was like, wow, I'm going down the same path. And fortunately, I mean, I was able to take the route out that I wish I could have taken out the first time, which was building a successful business, selling it, and moving in another direction.
Epic. So one of the things you did was you learned from your previous mistakes, you learned from all the negatives, and applied them the next time you had the opportunity. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look back, and even on that time, wow, I wish I would have done this a little different, this a little different. But relative to 2007, 2008, it was awesome.
Yeah. And the next time it'll be even better.
It'll be better. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And one of the reasons I bring it up is because people who are maybe in the beginning phases right now, or maybe getting towards that low point, one of the things you need to do if you're watching this and you're getting towards that point, remember, listen to Rob's story and understand the fact that you will take some of the things that are really painful now and you're learning now, and you're going to apply them, apply them in the future and become even more successful. So it's interesting because your topic today, which we're going to get to in a little bit, is about publish and promote and profit from your very own best-selling book. So it sounds like once you wrote the book and once you built that financial services, it sounds like you then took it to another level and realized that you could help other people do the same thing with the knowledge that's inside of them. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's, that I stumbled into, as a gift from God, because I really find something that gives me a lot of deeper fulfillment. And people ask me, I mean, remember it was 2009, 2010, so it's not like things were humming. I mean, our business was exploding for me, but a lot of people were really struggling, and they were like, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And can you help me to do it? And I shared with them, what I was doing, and could I help them? I tried to help them, and did what I could to help them and give them advice. And of course, that morphed into, over the next few years, our program, which I found just tremendous fulfillment in, as relative to, there's nothing wrong with financial services and real estate, and people are very fulfilled in that. I just was not. And what I do now is kind of, in some ways, what I'm built to do.
Yeah, that's epic. And so one last question as we kind of wrap up the aftermath piece before we take a very short break and then get into your expert focus segment. You were in housing, which some people would say would be helping people. In other words, you're helping people get a roof over their head. You were in financial services, and some people would say that that's helping people because you're helping people build maybe a financial legacy. But now you're in the business of teaching people how to publish, profit, and promote. Publish, promote, and profit. You got to get it in the right order from their own best-selling book, which to me sounds like it's not only helping them, but it can help exponentially more people. It sounds like it can help exponentially more people. So would you say this is a more fulfilling and not necessarily better? Don't take the judgmental tone of better, but or my judgmental tone of better. But do you feel this is more fulfilling because you can help more people in this capacity?
Yeah, I mean, it is better for me, me internally. Like I tried to say before, I don't think there's anything wrong with real estate or financial services. I have a realtor and I have a financial services person. I need them. Um, but, but I just don't want to be that guy. I think there are a number of reasons I love what I do outside of, the success that I have financially. And one of them, yes, is that, I am able to exponentially impact people by helping somebody get their message out. So I'm not just helping that individual, but I'm helping the thousands of other people that are reading their material, that are connecting with them, and that are having their lives changed in one way or another. And that to me is just really cool. I just think it's just fun, really, really fun.
Yeah, it is definitely a blast. So for all of our
Yeah.
viewers, we're going to take a very, very quick break. Today on the show, we're talking to Rob Kosberg. He's just told you about his hero's journey, and as he put it very succinctly, success, major failure, success. If you just tuning in, or if you happen to catch this, or catch this on the replay, go back, watch Rob's hero's journey, and you'll understand how somebody who is in real estate and went through that severe crash of 2008, has come back strong and is now helping thousands upon thousands, and by extension, millions of people by showing authors how to profit, see, I get it out. Give me the profit first, man. Don't make me publish and actually write something. Just let me profit, baby. It's showing you how to publish, promote, and profit. I didn't care about promotion, just profit, baby. Just get me to the profit. That's what our viewers are saying. Get me to the profit. But no, he's built an incredible business showing authors how to publish, promote, and profit from their best-selling book. And that's what we're going to be talking about in our Experts Focus segment. So if you're going to go grab a drink of water, going to go grab a excuse me, cup of coffee, an energy drink, whatever your choice is, just come on back in like 30 to 60 seconds, and we'll see you on the flip side. Are you a coach, an author, or a speaker who wants your very own web TV show just like Expert Showcase, only with all your branding around it? Then what you want to do is head on over to VideoContent.Agency, go up to the Work With Us tab, send us your information, let's start a conversation, let's see if we can develop a program around you and your message. And until we see you there, make it an epic day. And welcome back to today's Expert Showcase episode. On the episode today, we have Rob Kosberg, and we're about to get into his Expert Focus segment of the show. And in this piece of the show, he's going to talk to you and show you how to publish, promote, and profit. If you haven't watched the full episode, you got to go back and watch why I just had to really slow down that one from your own best-selling book. Rob, give us a quick overview, 60 to 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. I said quick last time and it was 6 seconds. You're epic, by the way, on that. So give us a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today.
Well, publish, promote, profit is all about, taking somebody that is already at a level of success in their business and taking them to thought leader, really top of the heap. I mean, if you think for a moment, no matter what industry you're in, we talked about realtors, financial advisors, if you're a fitness consultant, if you're a doctor, chiropractor, dentist, if you're a speaker, whatever, if you think about the guys and gals that are at the top of their industry, they're all best-selling authors. And there's a reason they're all best-selling authors. You never heard of Zig Ziglar when he sold pots and pans door to door. You heard about him when he wrote his book. You never heard about John Maxwell when he was a country preacher. You heard about him when he wrote his books on leadership. It goes on and on and on and on. So the short version is using a best-selling book to get yourself to that, really, literally to that status.
Epic, and it's interesting you mentioned John. I partnered with him a few years ago, joined him as a founding partner when he created his coaching, teaching, public speaking certification program. And we heard the story many times of Hillham, Indiana. They
Right.
church of a couple of people in Hillham, Indiana. So
Right.
But anyway, not to derail us, because I probably could at this point, but I won't, because it's your show, not mine. Oh, let's dig right into it. So I've been trying to skip over publish and promote because I just want to get to the
You want
profit.
to get to the profit.
But we got to start off at the beginning. So let's talk about publish and talk about point number one today, which is publish.
Yeah. I shared in the beginning of the show, that I made some massive mistakes, right? I mean, honestly, one mistake cost me literally $1 million, and most people want to know about that, so happy to share with you about that. You know, the published piece is a massive piece because statistically, 81% of all Americans at one time or another have thought about writing a book. Perhaps that's true with you, or perhaps it will be true with you, but 8 out of 10 Americans. And that's probably true across the whole first world. About 0.25% ever do. So why is there this massive disparity between those that want to and those that actually do? There's 2 reasons. Number one, they don't know what to write about because maybe they're an expert and they're thinking, well, do I write my story? How specific do I get? Whatever. And the other issue is they don't know how to write it. So those 2 things stop the 80+% from actually getting it done. So you have to deal with the whole, how do I get this book out of me, and how do I write the correct book to attract my ideal client? That's what the published piece is all about.
Yeah, so you're really going deeper. I mean, when a lot of people think about publish, they just think about, okay, publisher and boom, my book is out. But really what you're talking about is that whole beginning piece that ends up in the publish step, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you know, I like continuity, so I had to have 3 Ps, right? Publish, promote, and profit. So, yeah, the publish piece, the phase, what we call it the publish phase, actually constitutes from going from nothing, you know, no book, even no idea, all the way to having a completed manuscript that, you know, is edited with a cover and that's published and is a physical version, digital version, ISBN numbers, everything. So yeah, that whole phase encompasses that.
Interesting. So let me ask you a question. We have a lot of coaches, a lot of speakers who watch the show, and a lot of them say they don't see themselves as authors because while they have great material, they can't think about what they're gonna write about. What's one piece of advice you could give somebody right now if they don't know if they have anything to write about or figure out how to figure out what to write about?
Yeah, great. Well, the number one thing that they need to do is they need to consider exactly what the needs are of their ideal client, their audience avatar, we call it. And, you know, if they don't know what to write about, they certainly know who they want to serve, I would hope. If they don't, then they're probably just hand to mouth and trying to figure out their business. You have to know who you want to serve, and it has to be narrow. So with the book, the first place we start is, you know, we dive deep into 2 things. We dive deep first into 5 years from now, who do you want to be serving? And how do you want to be serving that individual? And who do you want your book to be attracting to you? Once we figure that out, we then dive deep into the psyche of that person. What is that person's fears, worries, aspirations, desires? What benefits can you bring to that person's life? That becomes the hook, the title, the subtitle, and the table of contents for the book. So the book is completely constructed with the idea of I am serving this person that I want to be working with that brings me inner fulfillment, income, and impact is what we talk about. When you figure that out, then the rest of it flows. It's not that difficult.
Epic. I mean, that is, you know, it's interesting because really what you're saying is you start with the end in mind. And
totally.
And starting with the end in mind isn't a dirty thing. I think a lot of coaches, a lot of speakers are afraid to start with the end in mind because then they feel they're guiding people along the way, or they're kind of, you know, a little bit, you know, icky. I don't want to say icky, and I don't really know why they feel that way. I mean, I think I did at one point, but I'm not really sure why. But it's the only place to start, because if you don't know your end result, you can't craft a good book and a good journey to get your ideal client there, right?
Yeah, and there are 2 ends. There's the end for you, and there's the end for your client. The end for you is just as important, right? I mean, my first book was on financial services. Do I do any financial services today? No. Now, it got me to where I am today, but the reality is I don't serve that client anymore. I was on my account earlier today. That book still sells all over the world. It sold, you know, 40,000 times. But you know what? If people wanted me to help them with the financial services, I'd say, I don't really know much about it anymore. I can't help them. So, you have to think about what end it is that you want as best you can, and you can figure that out. You can dive deep and figure that out, and then once you figure that out, you move on to that individual that you want to serve, and what is their end? How do you want to help them? How can you benefit them? When you have those things together, you can write a book that you can literally build a business around for the next 20 or 30 years if you want.
Yeah, epic. Or it can lead to something else in a different industry, like it has for you.
If you change your mind, sure.
So during the publish phase, one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is that ideal client avatar, and we talked a little bit about it today. Give our audience maybe the first step that they can go through, or the first step that you would take a client through into identifying that ideal client avatar.
Our first step is what we call our author market questionnaire. And the author market questionnaire is a deep dive into, that audience avatar. So there are 4 things that we look at, and that our clients need to think deeply about their ideal client. And I mentioned them, but they are, the wants and desires, the aspirations, which is different than a desire on the positive side. And then on the negative side, the fears and the worries of their ideal client. What are the things that are keeping them up at night? And if they can dive deep and figure those things out, the next step then is, how do you benefit that individual? Not the features of what you do. Well, in my coaching program, we're going to get together once a week and we're going to talk on the telephone. Who cares about that? I don't need another appointment. I need to fix something. So we want them to speak in terms of benefits, and how do those benefits fit into the needs, the wants, the desires, the aspirations, the fears, the frustrations of their ideal client. When those things fit together, then you got magic. You got an immediate hook, an immediate attraction. And I know some of this is just kind of marketing stuff, but books are bought on titles and covers. So, you have to hook somebody right out of the gate, and you've got to be speaking in their language, or they're not going to get it. They're not going to get why they need you.
Exactly, because people do judge a book by its cover. I mean, that's
Totally.
that
You
is
do, I do.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and by the way, it's funny because I want to say something to the audience before we get into the promote segment. We're going to get into the promote segment second. Rob, as you can tell, I'll say he's coming across to me as very humble, like, oh, this is just common sense. What he's giving you is epic gold here, guys. I mean, because if you listen to what he's saying when he's talking about the avatar, it's not the typical how old and yada, all the rhetoric and the shtick that everybody else who tells you how to create an avatar is going to tell you. He's talking about wants, desires, needs, and talking about the things that really are the things that are really gonna make a difference. And my hope for all of our viewers is that you're listening to what Rob is saying and take it into your heart so that you can get over that block of creating your ideal client avatar. I know it stopped me for many years from creating a book and doing a lot of other things. And hope, I wish I would have been here listening to Rob 2-3 years ago, because I would have gotten over my block on my ideal client a whole lot quicker, because once you understand, and I think, Rob, you would agree, once you understand the feelings and all the things you can interact with, all the other stuff that people tell you about your ideal client can be based, can kind of come off of, can kind of grow off of that. But it's almost like you almost can't do it the other way around, or at least it's much more difficult. Let's get into promote, because we got to get to profit, man. My brain is going, we got to get to profit, baby. But let's get into promote. So we've got a book that. So let me ask you this question: promotion, does it start before the book is published or after the book is actually physically published?
We start as soon as the book is published, and we focus on initially the digital version. So, we're creating both the digital ebook as well as the physical version of the book, which, anybody that's listening that is interested in doing it, you need both. You don't want to just create a digital version. You don't want to just create a paperback version. You need both. So as soon as it goes live, primarily we use Amazon as our platform. As soon as it goes live, we're cranking. And, we have a process that we take every client through.
Epic, epic. And for those people who want to promote on their own, let's say, and
Sure.
they may want to do some promotion on their own. What would be one hint or tip or trick you could give them um, to promote their book? Or let's say, let me put it another way real quick. We have a lot of authors who are probably listening. They probably have already created their books, and maybe their books aren't selling that well. And maybe they just never did a great promotional campaign. Can you give them one tip or trick that would really help them and at least see if they can resurrect an old book?
Well, they can, first of all, no question about it. I don't know that I can give one tip or trick. I would share that it's a process, and that the initial process, if if you go to a traditional publisher and you don't have a platform, they're not interested in you, right? They're not going to give you a dollar for the rights to your book because they know you don't have a platform. I I built my platform from my book. So it's possible to totally switch traditional publishing on its head and use your book to build your platform. However, if you just publish your book and then cross your fingers, if I build it, they will come, then, you're going to get exactly what everyone else gets. That's nothing. A few family members will buy it, and, maybe you get lucky and make a few sales here and there, but, so what you need is you need a process, and, you need to put your book, if you want one tip, I'd say you need to put your book in front of your ideal client. And you're going to do that through paid advertising. You're going to do that through social media. We do it through press releases. My authors come to me primarily because they don't have an audience, a big audience. Some do, but they come to me because they want help in building that platform and making sure the book is going to be exceptional. So, the only way we can do that is by putting the book with its great hook, title, subtitle, and content in front of their ideal audience that they don't have currently in their own email database, etc. And we do that through paid advertising, social media, press releases, and the like. And anybody can do that. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah, epic. So you mentioned about that because when I mentioned old book that maybe they could resurrect. Let's talk a little more about promotion here. And if an author came to you with a book that they had that was just languishing, they had written a book, they felt the content was good and everything, but it was just languishing. First, is that a client you would even take on for that
Yeah,
particular book?
oh, absolutely. If it's of good quality and and relevant, then 100%. We do it all the time. We might make recommendations. We might say, let's change the cover, let's change the title. Can you add a chapter or two? We may just take it as it is because it's good. It just is average from a marketing perspective. I mean, I have clients, I was just doing a webinar. I have a client that launched his book, very good quality book, very well written, small niche, agile consulting, which I didn't even know what that was when I launched it a year and a half ago. He worked with Fortune 500 manufacturing firms, and he launched it, didn't do anything, and he came to us and he said, can you help us? We went through it. The book is great. So we launched it. It became a bestseller. In the first 2 weeks of the launch of his book, he picked up a new consulting client from the book launch, paid him $80,000. He's got numerous speaking engagements, massive hundreds of thousands of dollars in new clients, and Morgan James just came to him and said, because your first book was so successful, little do they know why, because he tried to launch it on his own and didn't do anything. They gave him a high five-figure book advance for his next book, which I hope it does well. If it doesn't, he can come back to us. But, the point being is we didn't change his book at all. We didn't change his cover at all. We just marketed it to his ideal client because it was already good. And even though it floundered initially, it succeeded massively because it was marketed well.
Epic. And I think that's a great point to start winding down the publish. You've got to get to the profit. And I keep mentioning it because people I know want to figure out how they
That's the
can.
promote phase, so we're almost there.
Yeah, exactly. We're almost there. We're almost there, man. We're coming around the fourth turn, and we're getting there. We're either Pocono or Homestead, but anyway, that's besides the point. But no, I mean it's interesting, and what I really want the viewers and especially the authors who are watching us to take to heart is the fact that if your book is languishing and it isn't on the top, it has never hit the top of the bestseller list. It might not be you, it might be your marketing. And I think that's a much more comfortable place to be than thinking it's all me. Because Rob, you work with a lot of authors. I mean, I think authors a lot. Do you find that authors get very self-conscious when their book isn't promoting and always think it's the book, or do they ever realize it was the marketing and they didn't do the promotion phase right?
It's both. They feel both. I almost always think it's the marketing. I mean, the example that I give people, because I come from kind of the real estate and financial services market, is, and I've done tons of financial services books for clients, and almost any financial service person that you ever meet that is decent thinks they're better than someone like Susie Orman. They think Susie Orman's advice is basic, it's simplistic, it's silly. And yet Susie Orman's worth $40 million. And Susie Orman is the face of, financial questions for half of America. Why is that? Because she's so much smarter or more of a financial expert? No, she's a great marketer. She's awesome. I mean, everything, and by the way, it was her book that launched her to her career. Her second book, not her first, became a bestseller. And so, I mean, it's very rarely the content. It's almost always the marketing. That's the problem. And when you can get that down, I mean, it's magic.
Exactly. And that's when we get to profit. And then we start to profit.
That's right.
Everybody knows what profit is, and everybody wants more profit. In your system here, when we're talking profit, what do you really mean when we're talking profit here?
Well, we focus on three areas in the profit phase. We focus on using your book to get speaking engagements, using your book to get free publicity, and specifically that's radio, television, podcast, blogs, print, and using your book to generate leads, client leads for your business. What I tell my clients is, look, sometimes the book is magic. Sometimes we launch it and people come to us because of the launch. But every launch ends, right? I mean, eventually space shuttle leaves the atmosphere and is in orbit. It ends. And so what happens after launch is going to be much, much longer in the lifespan of your book and your business than the 1 month launch that's done on your book. So the profit phase is all about using your book for those three things. And the book is magic when it comes to positioning. I mean, you want to get on television. If you're a best-selling author, you can get on TV. We have clients on TV every single week. We guarantee it, in fact, unlike most PR agencies, because we we only work with our clients that are best-selling authors, and we know that we can get them on TV. I've had clients in Lucky Magazine and Success Magazine and ABC, just any television station you can think of, because they're best-selling authors. So it opens those doors. This Saturday, in fact, I have a client coming out and is going to speak at the Green Festivals in LA. I'm bringing a film crew out there. The Green Festivals is the largest renewable energy kind of green thing in the country, and there are 4 a year. And my client, because we did his book about 1.5 years ago, launched it, got him on TV, we got him booked, and he's speaking to over 20,000 people at the Green Festivals. He had never spoken to 100 people before. Now he's speaking in front of 20,000. Why? Because he didn't used to be a best-selling author, and now he is. And so, the book, a best-selling book will do that for you. What I tell my clients is, look, you still have to close deals. You still have to get people to write you checks. You don't open the book and money flies out of it, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's nothing more powerful as a positioning tool to have the highest prices in your industry and still have people flocking to you, to be on the best stages, to be on television and all of that, as with your best-selling book.
Yeah, and I also noticed, and I hope our viewers did as well, the one thing that was not included in the profit phase was actually profiting off the sales of the book, meaning,
No, yeah.
The interesting thing is, we were talking about CEO earlier, and a lot of authors get into the business and go, I'm going to get this huge advance, I'm going to make my living off the sales of the book. And I noticed that wasn't in your profit phase. So
wow. How did I leave that out?
I'm going to guess it's because it's because that's not really where, unlike days of past, that's not really where the money is anymore. I mean, years and years ago, it used to be get a big check, it used to be get an advance, write a book, and then make, all the money off of the book. And then
what do you need to get a big advance? You need a platform.
Yeah.
And look, if you're Hillary Clinton and Kim Kardashian, hey, get a big advance. I mean, Hillary Clinton, she'll get $2, $3, $4 million book advance because they know how many books she's going to sell. But if your name is not Hillary Clinton or Kim Kardashian, that's probably not going to happen for you.
Right.
And so, yes, there are the Stephen Kings and the J.K. Rowlings, but what a lot of people don't know, as an example, J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter series, I mean, she sold 50, 75 million books. So let's say she made $1 a book, which is about, with the big publishers, what you make. So she makes $100 million. Well, can you become a billionaire by making $100 million? You can't. How do you become a billionaire? Well, you get licensing rights to movies. You get licensing to products. I mean, even if you're writing fiction, there's more money outside of the book than there is in the book. So, my first book, I think I mentioned, has sold maybe 35, 40,000 times. I've made money from that. I get royalties every single month from that, but it's like stepping over $100 bills to pick up nickels. Yeah. If that's what you're focused on, then, you're certainly not a client for me, and probably, you're just not going to be very satisfied in the long run with, your book, with what your book does for you.
Yeah, and that's really the point I wanted to get across. You made it so great. I'm pumped up. I mean, I love that. I'm pumped up just hearing it and hearing you talk about all this, because in reality, if one of the things is, if you're an author and you really think you're going to make the money on the book, you may get lucky. But I would say keep your day job. However, if you're a coach or a speaker and realize that what the book is going to be able to do for you is potentially, and I'll say this, Rob's not guaranteeing it, but I'll say it potentially could exponentially increase your platform. You've already heard him talk about somebody who went from speaking in front of less than 100 people to now speaking in front of over 20,000 people. What would that do for your business? What would that do for your coaching or your speaking business if you stop the 10 and 20 people in a room speaking engagements, and all of a sudden we're on stage in front of 20,000 people and 20,000 potential clients, or 20,000 potential next bookings, or 20,000 potential people buying your book, right, Rob?
Totally. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's, in some ways it's very formulaic, because it is about marketing, it's about positioning, it's about building celebrity status. And look, if you're a coach or a speaker, hopefully you're a coach or a speaker because you want to be a coach and you want to be a speaker. If you want to be a coach and a speaker, then you don't want to sit around writing books. You want to write so that you can coach more people, or so that you can speak at more venues, or so that you can fill in the blank at whatever brick and mortar business. Now, if you really want to be a writer, then you should start writing. And there are opportunities to make good money as a writer. My clients, for the most part, are not the ones that just write 1,000 words a day and they'll write 1,000 words a day forever. I can still help them, and I can still help them build their initial platform if they don't have one. But most of my clients are guys and gals that love doing what they're doing. They're coaches, they're speakers, they're brick and mortar business owners, and they want to do more of that. They want to impact more people by doing what they do. And the book is what leads to that.
And that's what it's all about, is making a big impact. It's funny because one of my friends, Ken MacArthur, runs the Impact events, and
Yeah.
he is out there making a big. You mentioned Morgan James. I figured you probably knew Ken by extension of knowing David Hancock and those guys over there. So, but that's what it's all about. It's about making an impact. And from having you on the show today, and from just I'll say the limited time we've had to spend together today, I can really tell that that's part of your heart at this point, is helping people make an impact. Oh, man, it's been an epic episode today. Rob, I've got your website and phone number on the screen right now. Everybody has, if you are even thinking about it, or even if you're not thinking about a book and you think there might be a book somewhere deep inside of you, or if you're a coach or a consultant or a speaker or an author, in other words, you're somebody watching this show and know that a book can lead to greater things, and realize it's all about building your platform, you need to reach out and talk to Rob. If you're just tuning in right now, by some chance you just got here right now, what you need to do is go back and watch Rob's hero's journey and understand why, through all his successes and challenges, he's the right one to help you. And then watch the Experts Focus segment, because you're going to learn how to profit. See, there I go, skipping right to the end. Publish, promote, and profit from your book. So, Rob, before we wrap up and before we roll on out of here, is there any last words of wisdom or anything you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, the one thing I'd say is, look, whether we help you or not is irrelevant. Write your book. Get your book done. Get started on it. Finish it. There was enough in this episode as far as like creating your customer avatar and thinking about your hook. And there's enough free content on my website and other places for you to make a big start. So look, I mean, had I known what my book would have done for me, it wouldn't have taken me 18 months. I would have locked myself in a hotel room or a closet and finished it in 2 weeks, right? Because it changed my life. And it can absolutely change yours too. So get it done.
Epic. And on those epic words, everybody, Rob, thank you for being an epic guest. All our viewers, thank you for your time today. And until next time, make it an epic day.